right, welcome back here from that quick break. We're still watching Africa's Finest Breakfast Show. It's now time for us to get into discourse. We're looking at transfer of technology, looking at the implementation of the new policy by the federal government of Nigeria, where companies or organizations that do employ expatriate workers will have to pay a levy to the federal government as a way of generating revenue and also protecting the indigenization of Nigerian workers, giving us balance in terms of the employment of workers, both local and expatriate, and also help in the training and transfer of technology and knowledge to Nigerian workers and expertise. So that's the essence of our discourse this morning. And we've got a legal mind who will be helping us look at the legal implications before we look at the economic implications. We've got Oche Emmanuel, who's a lawyer and an activist, joining us via Zoom. Oche Emmanuel, nice to have you join us on Global Morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, let's look at the new policy by the federal government of Nigeria, deciding that going forward, any company that employs expatriates would have to pay certain levy as a way of generating revenue, and also as a way to also help the transfer of technology and knowledge to Nigerians, and also protect the indigenization and balance of the workspace. For you, legally speaking, the federal government coming out with such policy, did they follow the right channels, and what's going to be the legal implication if there's any disputes?
Well, once again, good morning. There is no legal implication for the federal government to come up with such policy. There must have been a legal framework to accommodate the policy. First of all, I think the policy is well intended. It is intended to create jobs for Nigerians, because some of the jobs that are being taken by expatriates are jobs that Nigerians have been trained to take up. But because African society values so much of foreign services, you see them wanting to accommodate more expatriates in a service that a local personnel in Nigeria could have taken up. The intention of the federal government is to ensure that there is more job for Nigerians, and then the technical aspect of every company should be much more valuable than what it is now. In countries like Ethiopia, you could hardly find a foreigner owning a company in a country like Ethiopia. That is not to mean that foreigners don't do business there. They do, but there are stringent laws that only allow them to come in and do business with the nationals. So for me, I think the intention of the federal government is well intended. The laws that will be amended. For instance, the Expatriate Act, the quota, and all of those things. They will all be amended to ensure that this policy is implemented.
All right, Mr. Oche, good morning. Now, what happens when there is a trade dispute? How can the judiciary sort it out?
Well, usually if you look at our agreements, the way agreements are formulated these days, most of the agreements have what we call the arbitration clause. This arbitration clause allows people to seek alternative dispute resolutions. And of course, it is also clear that where there is any form of trade dispute, the local laws will come to the rescue, not international laws. But that is not to mean that there aren't going to be treaties. I mean, tripartite and bilateral treaties between countries and companies. That does not mean there won't be. But what the policy intends to achieve is that it is not going to be wholly on the side of the foreign investors. There must be local partnership that takes the chunk of the investment. So much so that when there are issues, those who form the larger part of the directors will determine where the issues will be resolved. Just like we have in our NNPC now, you find out that it's more like a local company now, and so that is what the federal government intends to do. When there are disputes, the laws that may apply most likely now will be the local laws of Nigeria.
Now, for private organizations, for instance, can the government be forced to pay their levies, especially for companies that has employed these expatriates before they came in?
The line is breaking. I can't hear you. What? Can you repeat that question?
I said for private organizations, can the government be forced to pay these levies, especially for companies that has employed their expatriates before the law came?
No, no law is made. No law is implemented in retrospect. Those who have employed expatriate before the implementation of this law may not have to be forced to take the law hook, line, and sinker. They may be asked to modify their staff strength to accommodate the policy, and gradually it will take the turn. Those who have some sort of agreements that allows foreign expatriates to take over most of the technical aspects of the job may still run the job, but such law is now subject to review because no agreement that conflicts with the laws of the federal government overrides the laws of the federal government. Once there is any private company agreement that conflicts with the law of the government, that private partnership agreement to that extent becomes null and void. But however, what the policy seeks is that going forward, any private organization or public organization or even government investors, foreigners coming to invest in the government must now have to realize that there will be more local content involvement in such investment, in such arrangement, more than it used to be. So that freedom is gradually being taken away from foreign investors.
The government says they are going to put a timeline for these foreign expatriates to, as a matter of fact, train Nigerians, like looking more like a technology transfer. Do you think there should be a timeline for this expatriate to train Nigerians in terms of transferring the technology to Nigerians, and how feasible would this be?
Yes, I don't only think, but that is what the government is going to do. There will be a timeline for most of this technology to be transferred to the local workers, local staff, and then to do that, it is going to come with some form of incentive. And of course, where any investor or any company, private company or even government company refuses to comply with this, don't forget that the government regulates the coming in and going out of foreigners about our laws. They can be denied such opportunity, and if they come through the back door, they can be deported. So there is going to definitely be a timeline for this technology and knowledge to be transferred. And once that is achieved, the foreigners may still work. It is not that they're not going to work, but they may not be wholly and totally in charge of some of the technical aspects. In fact, for some companies, we have what we call the NDAs, the non-disclosure agreements that are signed by companies to limit the source of information that goes from the company to outsiders. So in this context, it is possible that such non-disclosure agreement now will have to go beyond the foreigners. Such agreement will now have to be reviewed to allow some of the foreign technical officers to open up such knowledge to our local staff to enable them take off from them when they eventually leave the country.
All right, I think I will. I don't know if we would need to take a very quick break so that you sort things out. Then we'll join you in the next few minutes.
No problem. I'm fine.
All right. All right, let's go for a quick break. Then when we come back, Chairman definitely will be rejoining us when we come back from this very quick break. Stay with us. It's still Africa's Finest Breakfast Show on. All right, welcome back. It's still Africa's Finance Breakfast Show, and we're talking with our chairman, who is a lawyer and activist, who are looking at the legal implications of the government's recent policy of putting a levy on expatriate workers being employed by Nigerian organizations. So we're trying to see the legal perspective. If there were cases of trade dispute, what will be playing out? Okay, our chairman, you stay there with us.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so let's get while we try to wrap up our conversation. Let's look at the issue of this levy. The government wasn't specific as regards how much the levy was going to be, what considerations they will be having to decide the levy. Do you think this is calls for a stakeholders meeting before the government can come up with a specific levy, and what should be the consideration? Should there be some legal consideration, and would the judiciary be involved in agreeing a fee? Because most times it is the private sector that employs these expatriates. So what can we be looking at when such things are done? And what is the contribution of the judiciary or the lawyer in such cases?
Well, definitely there will have to be a new legal regime in trying to accommodate that policy. Definitely there will be. In terms of levy, I think the essence of imposing a levy, and possibly a reasonably high levy, is to possibly discourage people who would want to flaunt that policy. The judiciary on her own will wait for people who are not comfortable with the new policy to approach it. But of course, the government decides the kind of policy that will be beneficial to her economy and the people. And of course, I don't see the possibility of parties going to court for this reason. However, I reasonably believe that the overall interest of this policy is to ensure that Nigerians take hold of what is theirs and then run effectively what is theirs, because we cannot continue to operate like we used to operate 20 years, 30 years ago. We should have a new policy that will ensure that the country, every investment, every company in the country is run basically by Nigerians. Like I told you, in Ethiopia, you can hardly find foreigners owning companies there.
All right, Mr. Oche. Now, with these policies and these implementations in Nigeria, how do you think it will affect more expatriates that will want to come into Nigeria?
Now, whether it will affect more expatriates,
Yes.
expatriates can come in, but they are not likely to come in as staffers of such company. They are not likely. They are likely to come in as people who are coming to supervise their money, their investment, and then possibly to transfer technology. They're not likely to come in as people who are going to do the jobs that Nigerians are qualified to do. So it may not. The only thing it will do is that it will keep some of those technical officers who are expatriates back in their country, and then the benefit to us is that there will be more jobs for those who are specialized in such technical aspects that may require them. So the effect is a balanced effect. While it will create jobs for those who are in the country, it will also enable expatriates to remain in their country much more. But those who are required for the survival of the company will definitely be allowed to come. And more, that is not to mean that there won't be more investment. There's likely to be more investment because it even costs investor more to bring in expatriates to come and work for them in the country. You can imagine the cost of travels, accommodation, and so many other things which companies will have to take care of, as against having a local personnel here who may have limited expenditure made on him or her.
Okay, okay. Let's our final question before you leave. Now, let's look at the implication of this law on. We talked about the transfer of technology and knowledge within a time frame. Do you think there should be a mechanism to ensure that this technology or knowledge that is being transferred is the required one, and they're not doctored or there aren't parts missing? Because we know that when these organizations pay heavily to bring these expatriates in, they tend to want to, there's what we call trade secrets. In order to save their own personal company trade secrets, might not give exactly what the knowledge required by Nigerians to be able to get that job done. What's the possibility of checking that trade secret issue?
Yes, if you remember when I started off on this discussion, I made mention of what we call the non-disclosure agreement.
Agreement, yes.
The NDAs.
Yes.
Usually when they come with such a non-disclosure agreement, but those agreements will have to be reviewed. That is what it simply means, to allow such expatriate to transfer such knowledge without necessarily being under any legal encumbrance. I don't see it being a shadow transfer of knowledge. If as a company you tolerate a shadow transfer of knowledge, then what you're simply saying is that you do not want the survivor of your company. So I think it is going to be a whole total package, because they are going to be paid for. They are going to be paid for. No knowledge, no knowledge is meant to be free these days. In fact, there is no free lunch even in Freetown. So for everything that will be transferred, for every arrangement, it will attract some cost, and there's going to be a process within the system that will allow for train the trainers policy. So as the local or the Nigerian technicians and the professionals begin to take up this training and then get more specialized in it, there is going to be the ripple chain of that, seeing Nigerian engineers, seeing Nigerian professionals, also training local people, so that that technology transfer will not just be from the foreigners to one set of Nigeria, it will now be from Nigerians to Nigeria. And that will now lead to the survival of the company or the economy.
All right. Let's look at companies that are bringing expatriates in. The question, do you think, I think my colleague has that question as regards...
Now, do you think the government should consider a tax holiday for companies bringing expatriates into the country?
Yes, at the moment, the government should consider that, because we are lacking in some of those technical know-how. That's the only way we can have companies bring in a handful and enough technicians or expatriates who are knowledgeable in areas that Nigerians have limited knowledge in. And once that is done, it's going to be for a time lag. So it's going to be a specific time within which this holiday will last, after which it will be vacated, and then the policy will not take full effect. The tax holiday will encourage companies to bring in more technicians, bring in more expatriates who are knowledgeable in areas that Nigerians are not knowledgeable in. And that will effectively transfer quantum of knowledge to Nigerians. So giving a tax holiday is necessary at this moment before they wrap it up with them.
Join us on the program. Thank you for your legal perspective towards this new policy by the federal government, and we hope the government and the companies that would be bringing expatriates going forward would have learned one or two things from our discussion this morning. We urge you to enjoy the rest of your day, and we hope the next time you'll be live in the studios.
Yeah, I will. Thank you for having me. And it's always a pleasure being on your studios.
Thank you so much.
All right, so that's how we call that segment. We'll call it a wrap. Let's move on to a very quick break. When we return from the break, we'll be just taking the economic perspective of that policy, and afterwards, we'll be wrapping up the program. Stay with us. All right, welcome back from that quick break. We've got, with the fire brigade approach, we've got two topics we're going to be looking at in quick succession. Just for the first 10 minutes, we're talking to our economist, talking about Ali Shatta. We just, Ali, thank you for rejoining us back after some minutes. Well, let's just get your perspective as regards this new policy of levy for expatriate companies who bring in expatriates to work in Nigeria. The fact that the federal government says going forward, they'll be charged some levy and given some time frame to pass the knowledge to Nigerian workers. Do you think it's a very strategic move? And in terms of the levy, how do you think it's going to impact on the companies themselves?
You need to weigh your gain and losses, right? You need to do your cost-benefit analysis as a company. Those resources that you are bringing in, do you have a substitute for them in Nigeria? The answer is yes, right? I will tell you that we have those talents here in Nigeria. The thing is, we don't utilize it much. And if you've interacted with these people in the field, most especially those technicians, right, who work on the field, you realize that they don't necessarily have more knowledge than even the people they are supervising, which are Nigerians. It's just because of the color of their skin. And I think it's high time we started to look beyond this neo-colonialist mentality. Because as long as we continue, right, to give much more credence to, the white skin above the black skin, or rather, you just adjust somebody who has come outside the country. As long as the person is a foreigner, we immediately give attention to that person. We don't really recognize us. We don't really appreciate and respect us. Let me give you an example. I'm talking realistically, practically from experience. When I went for the inauguration of the light trade, the metro train in Abuja. That was a couple of years ago, right? Which is what the current Minister of FCT is trying to regenerate. What happened was I interacted with those Chinese guys. They couldn't speak English. Most of them were prisoners whom are serving jail terms in China. And they brought them into Nigeria to come and do what? To come and work for us. They are not really giving us even their technocrats. So you can see that